Friday, 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 Friday.
Yes, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and I'm solo again today. And, well, you heard the intro.
Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. So, if you want to, go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Yankees trying to close out their series. 2-0 lead right now. In the 6th at the time of starting this recording. Top of the 6th. I think it's now, it's the top of the 6th right now. The Yankees are up. And Aaron Judge is hitting a double right now. So, I believe so. At least I have a game day on, and it's like ahead of my TV. And so it just told me he's hit a double. But I haven't seen it on the screen yet. So, you can kind of see there. Actually, still another pitch away. Give it up for streaming television. So it's always good. Always behind. Postseason's been fun, man. We're going to get into some of that. I know I say that every episode, but it still is. It hasn't changed. It's still fun. And it feels like it's going to continue to be fun. Good matchups, good stuff, all that good things. We're going to talk about it. Obviously, we got some things to talk about postseason wise. We got some things to talk about as far as the Pirates ownership and, things of that nature. A protest was organized this week. And so that's something that happened. And we'll maybe talk a little bit about it, a little bit about the postseason. Just kind of covering a few things. And then we're going to get into some other things Sunday when Jake comes back. I'm not sure what time the recording is going to be Sunday. For those who usually come around here, we're always 9 o'clock on Sunday, and it might be 9 o'clock again. But there could be something with Jake that comes up that makes us do it much earlier. Earlier, and then because of, certain football games, much earlier. So we may try to do something a little different on Sunday. So stay tuned. If you're on the YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit like, make sure you do all that stuff. Get the notifications so that when we have something coming out, you'll know exactly what time we're going live. We usually schedule it the day of, so you'll see it come out what time. Maybe if we're going early Sunday, I'll put something up the night before or something like that. Not sure. But either way, just kind of a little news there. Yankees could finish this thing tonight. Like I said, 2-run lead. Judge on second. Looks like one out. They win, they're in. They move on. The Mets moved on. The Guardians avoid elimination tonight, winning their game, sending the series back to Cleveland, I believe on Saturday. And then so this is the series here. If the Royals can win, they send it back to New York, and we'll do it again. So Dodgers Padres play
Friday,
and they are tied 2-2. Dodgers also up against the wall. We'll talk a little bit about that later. It's been interesting couple days, I'll say. I was going to say fun, but that was sarcasm. As you can see, for those of you on the video, wearing my Bradenton shirt right now. Obviously, the storms and everything that went through there were crazy. Tropicana Field in Tampa, St. Pete, actually. Roof blown clear off of it. Sarasota, Bradenton. I'm trying to think of, this is a baseball podcast, okay? So forgive me for thinking of all the towns that there are teams in. I know Lakeland was through that. couple teams down Fort Myers way, Blue Jays up in Dunedin, Yankees in Tampa, St. Pete, Rays nearby. I'm trying to think of where theirs actually is. Clearwater, where the Phillies are. Like I said, Fort Myers, all of that area along the Gulf and then in and across. Just unfathomable. So, Sherrod says Clearwater. Are the Rays in Clearwater as well? Is that what you're saying? Or you were just adding to? How you doing, Sherrod? Thanks for joining in. Thanks for being in the chat. Anytime that it's solo, and there are times that I'm like, oh, I'd love to get somebody on. There's other times where it's a little bit of a either last minute or it's a little bit of a gray area about the topic, or the topic is like waiting till the last minute or something like that. And on those days, a lot of times it's like, well, I'm not getting someone else on. Always appreciate anyone who can be here live and be a part of the live chat and all of that. It's much appreciated. Looks like Stanton singled in Judge. It's now 3-0 Yankees in the 6th. And man, I got to tell you, Royals looking like this might be it for him. We'll get into that. Also, my wife had ankle surgery, and so before I dive into that, Ethan jumps in and says, giving this live stream a try, and you sound weird because you're not 1.5 speed. Sorry, Ethan, I'll try to speed up. If I talk 1.5 speed, I'll say so many words. But yeah, no, listen, I totally understand that, Ethan. There's a lot of times when I listen to podcasts, even if they're on YouTube, I will still speed them up to 1.5, 1.25, until I hear something that it's like, oh, I need to pay more attention to that. Then I put it regular speed, and it always feels so slow when I do that. But also, I think starting this show tonight, I've been even slower than normal. So it probably really was rough for you. But either way, yeah, my wife had ankle surgery on yesterday morning. And so she's non-weight bearing for 2 weeks. This is the second time in a calendar year. Like, it was late last year that she had ankle surgery, and there was not a problem with the surgery, but a problem that came up post-surgery. We don't actually know, but I'm going to spare you the details because it really doesn't matter. But either way, it's not been fun. And, if you're married, that sucks. So, and not only just the fact that they're down and that they can't do anything or anything like that, like, that sucks. But then also that selfish part where you're also having to, do all the kids stuff. So she's being a trooper right now. She can't get up, but if the kids come out, she's going to try to derail them and talk to her instead of them coming down here. So, that'll be fun. Cause technically they could be like, I don't want to, I'm going downstairs, and they just walk downstairs and she won't be able to do anything about it. So if we have a visitor, we know that they just defied their mother and came on down, but whatever. We'll adjust. So anyway, what else we got here? The Twins are for sale. Let's talk a little about this kind of stuff. The Minnesota Twins are up for sale, and it's a decision that ownership is saying that they made sometime this summer. And I mean, read into it, right? Is it not profitable? Is it whatever? It sounds like, and I've heard it take foul territory. Scott Braun basically said it is, they're done. And I don't, like I said, I don't know if this came from somewhere. I don't know if I heard, if I didn't read this anywhere. So I don't know if this just come out of him and his praise of them selling or whatever. But either way, he said that he's tired of ruining the name, the family name. And so the family decided to sell because they're because of the ridicule or whatever that comes down on them, because they won't spend money. I mean, this is a team that made the playoffs and they cut payroll drastically. In the name of regional sports networks or whatever, it doesn't matter. And this has a lot of Pirates fans kind of feeling hopeful right now that it is possible. That, for a long time, you've just heard these guys don't sell. These owners don't sell. This is too much of a thing. They make too much money, for one. For two, there's just that whole aspect of I own a team and that's cool and I want to keep that, right? And it is profitable. So no matter how profitable it is, it's that bragging rights section or point of it where they own a team, and that's awesome. Whatever it is, it's just a situation that has you thinking, and it had some guys thinking this week when they organized a protest telling Bob Nutting to sell. And, to be honest, I'm probably not the one to dump on anyone's efforts to speak up. I'm not going to really comment on the process and how they did it and what they did and all that stuff. It's just not, it's not really my deal. You hear me a lot. You hear me a lot on this show, giving benefit of the doubt. And it's kind of what I do. It's kind of the way I like to roll here. Whether it's the spirit of the dudes who set this whole thing up, or whether it's ownership and whether or not they care. It's benefit of the doubt. And I guess for clarity's sake on that, I should say, I believe that those dudes were coming from a place that means well for the baseball team in their city, and that they want to see change. And I think that that's something that's a good thing. And as far as ownership, I believe that this ownership group does care that the team wins. So both may have an interesting way of going about what that is, but I believe that they're both genuine in those things. And I guess you can chalk that up to that. I guess the thing is too, is I don't know any of them, right? So I don't really know the spirit behind it. So it's an unknown to me. So I choose benefit of the doubt here. I guess if you were playing devil's advocate, what would even be different? The ownership doesn't care. That would be the devil's advocate to that. And that those guys just wanted attention. So I think you're better off in fairness, going with benefit of the doubt here. And then just talking about other stuff. So, and you listening to this or watching this, you probably find yourself somewhere in the middle of that, right? And, or on one side or the other of one or the other, right? You're either fully on one side and not, whatever. But as far as the discussion goes, I mean, I'm one in the camp saying he's just not going to sell. That it's simple. He's just not going to. It's profitable. He's already sold off some of his things and not the Pirates. I don't see it as a thing. If you listen to the Pirates Fan Forum with Gary and Jim, they talked about some of the things that are upcoming in 2026 for the CBA and how that could even be more profitable. If either they're capable of winning more by that time, and it's mostly RSNs, regional sports and shared revenue and things like that. And we'll get into all that stuff on this show. We will, but if you want an early glimpse of that, go listen to the Fan Forum. It was really good. But anyway, when you look at it in that perspective and you say, okay, well, if he just holds out, he could put a winning team on the field once revenue sharing goes up. Or the franchise is worth more at that point. And so it's more lucrative to sell in a few years than it is to sell right now, because the value goes up if there's more money coming in. So, I mean, I think that's pretty obvious too. For those reasons, I just think that it's probably just not a thing. I just think that they're not going to sell. Now, if there is some sort of truth to what happened in Minnesota and the fact that they were tired of their name, of their family name being drug in the mud, and you don't want to ruin the reputation of your family or the legacy of your family, then maybe it comes into at that point. I don't know. I don't think. I think that Bob Nutting is just a guy who, and to be fair, it's not just him, right? We use him as the guy because he's 51% of the team, of the ownership, so he gets it. But I like to refer to the group. But I think that he's somebody who doesn't pay attention to this stuff. I know he doesn't like media attention, so those that group of protesters this week, they got on the news. He probably didn't like that. So, and if that would have gotten some play beyond Pittsburgh in some of the other media outlets, I think that probably magnifies it a little bit. But I think you probably have a better chance. And this seems wild. I know a lot of people might be like, yeah, right, dude. I think you have a better chance of changing the approach and changing the plan of ownership before selling. I think that you could get a team who puts more money into winning before this ownership before you will get a team that will sell. That's just what I think. Because the money's there is mostly why I think that. I think the money's there to spend, and so I think that this team would be more willing to spend a few extra bucks, baseball terms, than you will a front office that's gonna sell. That's just what I believe. Let's check on the game here. We're still 3-0. Bottom 6. For pitch clock, Garrett Cole's pitching. Yeah, he's gonna milk it for everything there is. So Sherrod says there must be a fear of not getting enough revenue to balance the investment in the team. Do you mean like he should have a fear of maybe not bringing enough money? Because the league he's going to make money. The problem is as a fan base, and we talked about this maybe a little bit last week, the fan base as a whole, man, like the boycott and stuff like that it's not ever going to be good, because you can only boycott for so long. If what we know about ownership, and we do, right? We've talked about this. We do know this. If what we know about ownership is that they take their earnings and their profits from the previous year and apply it to the payroll of the following year, then a boycott just means we're going to stink worse next year, and it's our fault. If ticket sales and merchandise and concessions and all that stuff actually does feed into the profit that they're going to make that would be even remotely related to payroll, and maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe Ethan has more information on that from that standpoint. I'm not sure. But if there's even money that even flows that direction from that place to payroll, all you're doing is making the payroll for the next year go down by not going to the games, by not buying concessions, by not, like I said, if those things even make an impact on payroll to begin with. But I think it would, in the sense of like, well, if our overall profit is down, we spend less money the next year. So I feel like we could just do more damage than good with the boycott process. We've got some runs coming in. Bobby Witt scores on a double. I think I'm early here. I should just wait till it actually happens on TV so I don't spoil anything. For any of you out there who are watching and listening, watching the game and listening, maybe I'll just hold back on there. I don't know what my delay is, but it seems like I'm maybe jumping the gun there. I don't want to do that. So anyway, yeah, the boycott stuff, and even if you go down even further and you do this for year after year after year after year, then eventually nutting sells and the buyer moves the team. And that's why the sale even happens in the first place, is because, I mean, nutting, so just for fairness, nutting's not moving this team ever. He's here. He's staying here. If this team moves, it's because nutting sold it. At least I would assume so. That would be the big time out of left field move, is if he chose to move it. I think it would be, I'm selling this, and the buyer would be moving it. So then you have, the Nashville Sounds and the Pittsburgh Pirates no longer exist. So or if they change it to, I've heard Nashville Stars as well, whatever it is. Yeah, maybe you end up with a AAA team in Pittsburgh or something. I don't know. But boy, that would be interesting. Not good. So so as far as that goes, I guess we just put that out there. Like it's just not a good idea. Like, you still should pour into your team. And I know that's really hard to do, and it's totally fine. And I actually don't want to even say should, because I don't want to dictate how someone else fans, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't want to pay into it, that's fine. Don't do it. I guess the organizing of the boycott and convincing other people who love baseball and love the Pirates and convincing them that it would make a difference in a positive sense. I think that's the problem. That's the place where I would be like, hey man, I want to go to baseball games and I want to go to them at PNC Park and I want to root for the Pirates when I do. So like, I'm just going to keep doing that. And I understand what's going on here. I also understand that if we pack the house, I mean, if we pack the house for a year and maybe did it, I just don't know that it matters if we do it with signs saying, hey, we're holding up our end of the bargain, you hold up yours. I still don't think that he does. You know what I mean? It's not, I don't have that kind of confidence in the situation. And then furthermore, you have to have the confidence that the GM is the right GM in place, that he's going to make the correct moves, that if he does sign somebody, that it's going to be the right somebody. I don't know. And in that case, who the heck is the GM at that point? Because you've got that to deal with. It's I don't have answers here. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that there are things that I think are a bad idea, and there are things that might be more beneficial. And, I think some of this stuff is right. I mean, even if you're in a protest saying sell the team, you still could have an impact on him changing his mind or changing his plan in a way. I don't know. What's that look like? What's that look like if you're Bob Nutting? If you're Bob Nutting and you say, man, I'm getting a lot of bad attention here. They want me selling. I don't want to sell. I'm not going to sell. How do I change this? If I don't like being embarrassed on national TV, I don't like being embarrassed on local TV and local news, I don't like being embarrassed when these things that, like the Rowdy situation happens, then what do I do to change the narrative? What do I do to change the way that the public sees this ownership group, more specifically his name? Like I said, there's 49% of that team that's owned by other people. So but it's his name that gets drug. You know what I'm saying? How much influence is he? I mean, he's majority owner, right? So how much influence does he have in that room to say like, hey, yeah, your name's not on it. Nobody's talking about you. I don't know. And how much is he even paying attention to it? Which is the other thing, and something that we kind of understand about it. So once again, I'm just trying to be fair here. I don't necessarily, I guess I'm not presenting answers, but what does that look like? Does he Trey Turner style buy some billboards and apologize to Pittsburgh? Hey man, I'm not been holding up my end of this. Is that how he does it? You know what I mean? Like, what would you do? Sherrod, what would you do? How would you, if you were, I mean, you have to put yourself in a strange place here, because if you were Bob Nutting and you were saying, I'm about to change the way that I approach this entire thing, how do you go about it? Is it an apology? Do you agree to show the books the following season? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how far do you go with it? Or do you just, and I guess this is somewhat as a fan too, does any of that even matter? You know what I mean? No, I mean, so Cheryl asked, is he only making money because the salaries are so low? Absolutely not. They make money because teams make money. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the fact that, like, it's kind of just designed to make money. You could have, like, this was a low attendance year, and they're still going to make good money on it. It's not, it's some way down the line, it has to matter that payroll's low. It has to. I mean, that's going to go into the bottom line. If the lower payroll is, the more profit you're going to make out of this. And I think that's the big rub here, is that what's that profit side, the take home at the end of the year is probably unreasonably high. There's some room, essentially. And how is it? Give me 1 second here. I'm still here. But I'm trying not to. I have an itch on my nose, and for the video people, you don't want to see that. So we're going there, coming right back. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if the lower your payroll is, the more money you're going to make out of it. And like I think we talked about last week, if you're Ben Cherington and you want X amount of money in 2025, is it kind of an interesting strategy to spend less money in 24, because already you've been at this 5 years now. You know that the more money you make in 1 year, the more like profit is, the higher your budget goes the next year. There is no risk in like paying it forward, is what it seems like. There is no, well, if we take a risk and we spend more money, we should make even more money. That's just not there. It's just like, well, we have this money over the top, so next year we can spend that money assuming we're going to make the same. There's no risk involved in that. It's you spend what you have kind of a thing. And so I think that, yeah, I mean, if you lower payroll, you're certainly going to make a little more on that. The question is does that money become available? Does it really? And it goes back to what I was saying. If you're, as a fan, do you buy billboards that say, I'm not say you're purchasing billboards. I mean, like buy or sell, like, do you buy in on an apology if it's on a billboard that you drive by all the time and he says, I haven't held my end of the deal up, we're going to do better. Do you actually believe that? I mean, probably not. Most of us are probably like, yeah, right, Bob. You know what I'm saying? Like,
dang it, Bobby.
That's probably what we're thinking at this point. And until there's something shown and there's money spent, that's probably all it takes. So Cheryl says, if he wants us to not be upset with him, he needs to put his money where his mouth is. No more Michael A's or low end guys like that. Yeah, the thing about Mike Taylor, as I like to call him, is, I mean, this is a guy who a lot of us probably didn't agree with. But at the time that they signed Taylor, there was no other center fielders really available. It was close to spring training. It was a last minute move to get somebody defensively around this team in center field. And so there is a little bit there. He did hit 21 home runs the year before. But also I think that, like, here's the only thing I'll say, Cheryl, in this exact thing, is that your assumption is if Bob wants us to not be upset with Bob, then Ben needs to put Ben's money or Bob's money where Bob's mouth is, which isn't really that. You see what I'm saying? Like, Sherrington made the deal for Michael A. Taylor, not Bob Nutting. Bob Nutting quite literally said, here's your budget. Sherrington makes those calls. So it's interesting where, and let's just say that Bob said that you had X amount of money to spend this offseason, and Ben only spent 95% of that money. Let's say that's true. Part of that could be Ben saying, well, I need to leave some money available for the deadline so that I could acquire somebody at the deadline. Or Ben could be saying what I said, where he's, at the point where you say like, well, if I save this money this year, it does give me more next year. So in that sense, yeah. So, true. I guess Sherrington as much as fault. Yeah. I mean, Sherrington has a huge fault in this as far as the play, but like understanding that like he's also trying to operate under a certain budget that could be higher. So it, you know what I'm saying? Like there's it's kind of all over the place. It is interesting. It is interesting. Sherrod suggests if Cruz was not coming off injury, they may have moved him to center field in spring training. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is if you understand that O'Neal Cruz goes out there last year and he makes enough errors to be moved to center field last year, right? If he plays out his first full season in 2023, then yeah, he's probably in center field the entire 2024. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's a great point. And Taylor's never even needed. Cheryl, I totally hear this. Tired of hearing about next year. I will say that whoever has said next year about the Pirates to you, you've been misled because it's never been about next year until this year. It really hasn't. In 2022, it was about 2025. In 2021, it was about 2025. In 2023, it was about 2025. And so that's kind of the thing, is that like it's not been about next year. It's been about doing a proper rebuild to build a foundation to, and here's the difference, to build sustained winning in Pittsburgh. Because there's two different ways you can do a rebuild. You can do a rebuild to open a window, and you can do a rebuild for sustained winning. And I don't believe that you ever can accomplish sustained winning quite like Tampa has. And you understand that Tampa this year took a step back, but don't write them off of being in contention next year. Because of what they've built, there are years that you can take a step back, but you can continue to push forward year after year after year. And unfortunately for fans, especially fans like myself and many others around Pittsburgh, we like guys to be here. We want to sign extensions. We want guys to be here for a long time. And if you do that and you play with your emotions a little bit, you will never be able to repeat Tampa because they don't care one bit. They'll trade everyone, no matter how good, no matter how nice, no matter what, they will trade everyone. Whenever it's time, they will trade them. And so I don't know if that's what you want. I'm kind of like, yeah, I get it. We could be winning more often, but like how many World Series has Tampa won too? And I also get that. Get in and you give yourself a chance. Right now, Detroit and Kansas City for now, we're getting close, but they have a chance. And those teams were not very good. Kansas City Royals are trying to win their first home game since September 8th. You know what I mean? Like, and they could, and they're right here. They're in the thick of it. It's wild. Arizona won 84 games. Nobody that won 84 games even made it to the postseason this year. Last year, they won 84 games. They made it to the World Series. So I get it. I get all that. I guess it's just the idea that if you're building for sustained winning, it's always been about 25. That's how long the rebuild takes, regardless of what we want. They've trusted the process probably to a fault. There was a chance this past year that they could have been a year ahead. You know what I mean? I don't know. And maybe they tried. Maybe they really just got a raw deal with BDLC in that case. And a lot of us were like, I don't like it. But for some reason they did. And maybe it was just the control and the potential of power, because knowing that, hey, maybe it doesn't work out this year, but it might work out in the future. So I don't really know. But it's a big thing. So Mike, I'll go ahead and comment on these. You got a couple out here. The thing with Minnesota is they're losing their regional sports network, which is going to be 20% reduction in revenue. They already did this year, or they're still, I thought they did this year, but even though they are still going to, yeah, that's one of the big things. It's a huge loss in revenue. There are options. The Pirates had a huge cut in revenue last year. AT&T Sportsnet did not pay the full amount to the Pirates. They lost that money. They did pretty well with Pittsburgh Pittsburgh Sportsnet. I've even heard that they outperformed in viewership. They outperformed Boston, which, that's the same company, Fenway Sports Group, and the Pirates jumped into that mix, and it's Nesson and Pittsburgh Sportsnet. And I've heard that PSN did better than they did as far as ratings. So that's Boston. That's big, big market. So kind of interesting. And you say the Pirates are in a good position with their regional sports network. Them and the Penguins were able to co-own a network. And it's, like I said, Fenway Sports Group, all that stuff. But they're outperforming Nesson, part of that thing. So wild. I don't know that they're getting the same amount of money that they were getting from AT&T, though. I think it doesn't make as much money as they were making from AT&T. I don't have anything on that. I don't know if Ethan's still in here or if he's waiting to play me at 1.5 speed, and I forgive him and probably expect him to do that. And if he even has the information on this, but I believe this is less money, but it's better than going MLB route. So I think they made good there, but I don't think they're doing as well. But either way, I mean, there's a chance coming up, it's all going away and it's all going to MLB, which you would think you'd get less money from the regional sports, from the rights side of things, but it's going to boost revenue sharing up a ton. So you kind of actually are rooting for that in a way, because it would create more revenue sharing to be spread out across the teams. And that would obviously be a better thing. So, but yeah, I mean, Minnesota in general, it's going to be the same path for them. Once that CBA comes, once things get worked out, it could actually mean more revenue for them rather than less. There's still money to be made, even with that 20% reduction. So, like I said, I don't know the real reasons, but the Pirates dealt with the same thing, and they made this. I mean, they were to the wire deciding whether they were going to do this or whether they were going to go the MLB route. So, I don't know. Pretty interesting in a way. And had they gone the MLB route, man, I know a lot of us, we just have MLB TV. I know I would. I wouldn't have bought Fubo for the whole year. I don't think so. Especially now the MLB Network, I think even live on MLB TV. So I don't know. Anyway, it's all interesting. It's something to keep an eye on, but I don't know that there are many answers for us right now. But there doesn't also, just to cap it off with a little bit of silver lining here, there doesn't necessarily have to be. Like, there's a path, there's a process that we've gone through, and if Ben Sherrington and his entire staff and front office all the way down, if they're going to be successful, we're going to see that next year. This is going to be a really big offseason, and I don't mean big like they're going to spend big. I mean really important. And this is going to be an offseason that's really going to tell a lot about, I don't even want to say how serious they are because I believe they're serious. I'm going to say how much panic there is even. If they overspend in a certain way, that's Sherrington kind of with the panic button, knowing that he might only have one more year. I'm telling you right now, Bob Nutting wants his team to win. He has no idea how to make that happen. And he has his policy on the books. I mean, it seems like if that's how they're going to run their books and that's how they're going to set their payroll, he has to know who to hire that can actually make that happen. So I don't know. I mean, look at Cleveland right now. They just pushed things back to Cleveland. They're going to play their game on Saturday, and Cleveland is not much different than Pittsburgh. We're kind of in the same boat here. And they don't have great ownership up there either, but they're making the best of it. They're doing all the things that they know how to do, and they're trying to direct things the way that they can. So speaking of Cleveland, let's talk a little bit about the postseason. Let's wrap this thing up a little bit. Mike says he didn't realize Billy Hayward was selling the team. I like it. Nice little throwback there. Little Big League. Good movie, man. Good call out there. That's a fun one. And that's the one with Pete Crow Armstrong's mom. There you go. This postseason's been fun. I don't know if you guys are watching it, if you guys are just Pirates fans and you've been paying more attention to football and you're off to the Steelers and all that stuff, but kind of keeping in tabs with the podcasts and things like that, which is a totally reasonable way to do things. But if you are a big baseball fan the way that I am, you've been watching all these games. Garrett Cole's still dealing out there, by the way, guys. It's the 8th inning. Is he finally out? Oh, they were just showing a clip of him. He's gone 7 innings, but the Royals are out there right now. So he's gone 7. So he hasn't thrown the bottom of the 8th yet. And he's thrown 87 pitches. So he might go back out there. Still a 3-1 lead. The Yankees, like I said, they're the only division winner to take a 2-1 lead in this series, in the division series. The only division winner to take a 2-1 lead in the division series, which is kind of wild when you think about it. The Royals, like I said, haven't won a home game since September 8th. That's the fun buzz thing. Granted, that's just 7 straight losses. They had 6 straight in the season, and this is literally their first home games here. So they lost yesterday, 7 straight, looking like maybe 8 straight. That's significant because you end the season essentially with 8 straight losses at home. Not necessarily right. The Mets have advanced. They're going on the championship series. Cleveland backs against the wall, just forced the game 5. Forced the game 5. I'm going to take a drink here. Thank you. The Dodgers forced the game 5 when they had their backs against the wall. Elimination game, forced the game 5. They're heading back to LA against San Diego. So you've got, and the Mets obviously beat the Phillies, who were sitting there waiting for them. Once again, we're going to have these conversations about whether that break was good or bad for the teams. And I know, what can we even say? Like, the Pirates are not winning their division. Even if they do, they're going to be much like the Brewers, and they're going to be playing in the wild card round anyway. So why do we care? Well, I mean, we were in this situation before where we were the top seed in the wild card, and we had 2 home games that we lost, and we felt like we were better than those teams. And I think, so Sherrod saying, do you think the added days off affected division winners? I can't help but think yes. What is it? Like 3 of 8 of them have advanced since this has happened. Is that right? 3 of 8? So, I think that there's something to this. I think that the time off, it's good for pitchers. It really is. I mean, there's no way around it. You love rest. Although there are some that, have said, I've heard 2 or 3 different people say that maybe Mitch Keller would have been better off without the extra rest this year. Maybe he would have been better off on a regular cadence too. So there's something to that. The hitters definitely lose timing. There's no way you can do that. I wonder what it looks like for a team that has time off like that for their fans to pack their stadium or something for a practice or for something, just to get the energy level high or something like that. You've got to do something to emulate some sort of, especially these guys like the Phillies have had this thing locked up for quite a while. And so that feels like, when's the last time you've played a really tense baseball game? And how prepared are you for it? Because there were times where it was like they just weren't coming through in big moments and things like that. And that's kind of what it felt like, that there was a little bit of a disadvantage where they made it further when they were working their way through a wild card. So it's kind of weird in that way. Momentum's big in the postseason, and momentum continues to show. I think the Yankees are like, that's one of the big teams. The Dodgers are one of the big teams. Those are those big top players, MVP candidates, multiple MVPs on their team, things like that. Like, those are the big dogs, I guess you could say. And for them, I mean, even the Dodgers in that sense, were kind of up, like I said, back against the wall, in a sense. Now, the Yankees have generally taken care of business here, but they're doing it against a team that, I mean, I wrote something on SteelCityPirates.com. If you guys aren't connected with that, check it out. But I wrote a piece about the Royals and the Tigers getting in and not really being great teams. When the Royals were in Pittsburgh and we lost that series to the Royals, I had made statements saying, you look at this lineup and pitching staff, for the most part, they're not much better than the Pirates. It's just that they have a 9-win player in Bobby Witt Jr. that we don't have anyone close to it. It's like just this extra, it's like 2 more players for our team because of how much better he is than everybody on our team. He's the same way on their team. You know, as if like, I mean, it's just a huge deal having a player like that. It's huge. And it's played big. And not only that, but they were 12-1 against the White Sox in the regular season. That's a huge boost. It's a huge boost when you get to play that team 13 times. And the same thing for the Tigers. They were actually 10-3, but they were 10-1, and they locked up their postseason spot and lost their last 2 games of the season against the White Sox after they already locked the postseason up. So for the Tigers, you know what I mean? Like, they essentially could have been 12-1, anywhere between those two. So like, when you can get that many wins, and the Tigers, I wrote in that article that the Tigers were 24-10, but they only played 2 teams during that stretch that were over 500, and they lost the series to the Padres. And the only teams, they did win a couple series against the Orioles, who were falling apart at the end of the year, and showed that in the postseason. So I just felt like these teams kind of had their way in. Now, granted, you get in. I don't care. Beat the teams that are on your schedule. I'm not saying that these teams aren't good and they're not worthy of being in. But it does go to show, last year you had the Diamondbacks who won 84 games. 84 games is not much better than 500. And they made it into the postseason. They made it to the World Series. The Pirates could play in that sort of path. Now, the Diamondbacks this year won 89 games and didn't get in. So it's not in every year that you can say, well, if we play for 85, if you play for 85, you give yourself a chance, but that's not necessarily the right way to do it. If you win your division, which 85 would have done this year, outside of the Brewers, like if the Brewers would have won 85, they still would have had the division. You win the division, but you don't have to worry about a first round bye, which is just as good. I don't know what can be done about something like this. How can you shorten that gap for those teams? You certainly, if you're those teams, you certainly don't say, I'll opt to play in that first round. You don't. You want to make it to the next round. You don't want to play more games than you have to, period. None of that is true. Well, we talked about this last year, maybe around this same time. We talked about the potential of the higher seed, so the Brewers and I'm trying to think of the 2 National League teams, the Brewers, and I guess it would have been the Padres who did advance, but those higher seed teams, Brewers being a division winner and the Padres being the highest wild card. Essentially get a 1-0 lead in a 3-game series. A king seat, so to speak. If you've gone through a tournament bracket, a double elimination tournament bracket, the team who makes it all the way through the winner's bracket sits in the king seat, which means whoever comes up as the loser's bracket champion has to beat them twice, but they only have to win one because they have to beat, you already lost one. So in order to be eliminated, you have to lose twice. So if you think about it in that sense, if you were to say that the higher seed is sort of needs to be double dipped, but the lower, so you could play one game. If that higher seed, if the Brewers win game 1, the series is over. If they lose it, you play a second game, and then it's winner or loser goes home. Right. So there's, in every aspect of the wild card round, there's an elimination game. But if you've earned a higher seed than the team you're playing, then you could lose one game and still get another chance. And what this does is it incentivizes teams to be that higher seed. And then you lose that wild card advantage, at least in the wild card round. What is it in the wild card round? The team 12 for 12, the team who wins the first game wins the wild card round. It's happened every single time. There's been 6 of them, 12 for 12. The team who wins game 1 wins the series. So we're basically wasting our time. If that holds true, whoever makes it next year has the opportunity to be the first team who loses their first game and then wins their next 2 because nobody's done it yet. So looking at it that way, it's like, yeah, why don't we do this? And then we make it at the most a 2-game series, but maybe a 1-game series. And it's nobody's fault but your own. Win your division, be one of the top 2 seeds, and you don't have to do this whole thing. Be a division winner or be that top wild card, and you get an advantage. You have to do something to make this an advantage, but then you can get that series, the division series, to start one day sooner. Yeah, you just have to do something like this. I don't know. What do you think? Shared, you had a comment on it. What do you think about this? Is it possibly, I mean, it could be a 1-game wild card, but it could be what you were up against. So if you think about this back when the Pirates were good, if this would have been the format, we would have had another chance against the Giants and the Cubs. We would have had another chance to beat them. And I think without Arrieta and Bumgarner, I like our chances. And then we could have advanced 3 years in a row and actually won more than one playoff series. Put the series in quotes for those of you just listening, because we did win a playoff, like we advanced in the playoffs, but it was a 1-game playoff instead of a series. In this case, it would have been a 2-game series. We would have beaten the Reds and moved on in 1 game anyway. But I do like this, and baseball's already shown that they're willing to change things, so just go ahead and change it. It's definitely a thing. I think it is. I think it's playing. A role in the division winners. I think it's a disadvantage. Now, you're still going to win your division, right? There's no way that that's ever going to change. You're not going to try because you guarantee a spot. That's like I said about the Diamondbacks. 84 wins one year, 80, and they get in, 89 the next year, and they don't. So win your division and you guarantee a spot. So yeah, I think that's it's kind of a fun thing to think about. I think at this time of year, it's a little bit easier to think about it when your team's not in it and there's no like scenario where you can say, well, I mean, like I said, we're looking back 10 years for our scenario. There was less teams in, so. Shared says, like the king seat, double elimination tournament brackets bring back memories. Yeah, it's absolutely. I don't like them. When I do a tournament, I always do pool play, and it gets seeding, and then it's single elimination. That's the way I like to do it. But just, you know, if you guys follow along with this podcast, me and Jake playing a big Labor Day tournament in Cincinnati, and we actually, for the first time in the 12 years that I've been going, or 13 years, I don't remember what it is, something like that, that I've been going, 12 years, since 2012. So however you do that math, 2012 to 2014 or 2024. Anyway, since we've been going, we actually won it the first time this year. And bases loaded, 1 out, 1 run lead, and we turn a double play to end the game that put us in the championship, in that king seat. And then we lost our first game and then ended up winning. Well, we lost our first game 29-27, and then we run ruled them 26 to 6 or 26 to 6, and they needed so many runs and they didn't get them. So I forget what it ended up. But either way, like it was nice to have that, like, not one game there, because that was a shootout, and we ended up with that king seat. We were able to lose one and still take care of business. So Mike says the Pirates actually have some of the best TV ratings in baseball, and now they can collect all the TV revenue, so that's very profitable. Yeah, that's true. They do have, like I said before, the TV ratings are good. And they do get the money. There's also operating costs on top of that. So I'm sure there's money to be made there, and I'm sure they're making it. As far as, like, compared to what their rights deal, I'd be interested in knowing. I know that they took a big cut. At least the first year, like AT&T did not pay them the full amount for the season that they covered them. Like they just did not. They didn't have the money. They said, we're not going to pay you all of it. And they didn't. And it was that way with all the teams that AT&T had. And several with Bally when they dropped them too. They're just not paying the money in full. And that's the money for the rights. But I don't know what the bottom lines are. I don't know what they're making as far as revenue for that, and if it's outweighing all that. You know what I mean? If it ends up being the same. Because now, like, you have to make all that money, thinking about it. You have to make all that money. You're not selling the rights anymore. So you have to make a lot of money, so much money that you can pay to have the channel and make a profit on that. But that profit has to be whatever the Pirates were getting from AT&T, $60 million a year. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't know that it couldn't have been $60 million a year. Although it could have been. I'm so far removed from looking that stuff up, and I don't remember if it was ever announced anyway. I'm sure Ethan will let me know tomorrow if he's not listening to this anymore, which I don't think he's on here. But when he listens to it tomorrow, he'll probably set me straight if he's got some different numbers. But I just think you'd be hard pressed to make that kind of a revenue from it. Ron, good evening, man. He says no damage here. Got power back on at about 6 p.m. It's good to hear. Those south of me, not so lucky. Drop a prayer for them. Absolutely, Ron. Terrible storms going through there. At the top of the show, I mentioned I'm wearing my Bradenton shirt today. I actually followed the tornado a little too much the other night. Last night, I did not sleep well. I actually had some dreams, and I don't want to downplay anything. Like, all I had was dreams, right? But, and a lot of people had a lot, actually are dealing with this. But it's terrible. Years back, when we were living in Indiana for a year, my wife and I had gone down with a group to do some cleanup from a tornado that went through Indiana. And I'll never forget that. I will never forget that. The conversations that we had and everything. I'll never forget it. So yeah, if you pray, drop a prayer for them. Definitely have been. And this isn't like they just had a storm go through there. And so, like, there were pictures from Helene, I forget what, Helene, I forget how they're saying it, where there was already damage on, like, Bradenton Beach and all that stuff. And then this one comes through even worse. And they were already in a tough spot. So, and just all through that area, it's totally rough. But hey, anyway, good conversation this week. Jake had to close it out tonight, so we missed Uncle Jake tonight.
I'm bummed out. But yeah.
So anyway, it's some good conversations, some good things to follow along with, and enjoy this postseason. It looks like it's the end of the 8th inning. Yankees still have a 3-1 lead. They might be moving on. A couple game 5s to happen the next couple nights.
Friday.
So some good times here. Good postseason. It's always fun to watch good postseason games. Sometimes it's a totally different level of enjoyment when your team's in it. It's adrenaline. It's all those things that go along with it. You want that feeling, obviously, but when you're able to watch it from a different standpoint, like there's still a lot of entertainment there. It's not. I mean, just think about like when you're watching a Steelers game versus watching just a San Francisco and whoever the heck they're playing tonight, Seattle. I think San Francisco's probably killing them, right? Let's check it real quick. I don't watch football till the playoffs are over. I got 23-17 49ers starting the fourth quarter. So actually not killing them. For some reason, I thought they had a big lead. But either way, yeah, I am, man, I'm all baseball. You guys know that about me. I'm paying most attention to this. So anyway, watch postseason's games. They're a good time. So, all right, let's play some music and get out of here. I appreciate everybody that was here with me in the chat tonight, and everything's good. Look at this. Cheryl was at the 2013 wildcard game. That's awesome. I was at the other two for the losses. I think I was at both of them. I saw a win in St. Louis in 2013, a win at home. So yeah, I could see a little bit, but playoff baseball, man, I can't wait. We got to get it back to Pittsburgh somehow. Somehow we can do it. I believe that. Come on, Ben, get on the phone. Thanks, guys. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Please remember to stick around here and subscribe on the show. And if you already do, send something out on your socials, wherever. Tell everybody else. You got to follow these guys. Please, that would help us out a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks.